When you walk down the streets of certain countries, or come across a red envelope or a strange box in any location, you might find some cash and jewelry inside, possibly accompanied by a photo or a red piece of paper filled with writing. At that moment, you may think you've just come across unexpected fortune. But in reality, what you've gained isn't just wealth. You've also gained a companion, a ghostly companion. Today's video features a ghost story shared by an Indian friend I've known since childhood. This chilling tale happened to his older brother. Let's dive into the terrifying experience he went through. Plus, at the end of the video, I'll be sharing images of objects you should never pick up if you come across them. So make sure to watch until the very end. I'm Mr. Yao, and welcome to the Leyenda Yokai channel. Here, I explore famous yokai and urban legends. If you're into these topics, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on future videos. How do you interpret Second Life? Is it like playing a game where you take on a new role? Or perhaps starting fresh after serving time in prison? In reality, becoming a father can also feel like stepping into a second life. And that's exactly what happened to my friend's older brother. He found himself living a new life as a father despite never having been married. The story took place about 15 years ago, and the main character was a young Indian man in his 20s. Let's call him Viraj. Viraj was very independent. Although his family owned a grocery business, he never relied on them. He started working in the insurance industry at the age of 18, and in just 5 years, he rose to a high-ranking position, earning a substantial income. Viraj loved traveling, and every year, he would go on a men's trip with his friends and younger brother. For someone like Viraj, wealthy and good-looking, if he had any flaw, it would be that, like many men, he had a weakness for women. On this particular trip, they traveled to a country with beautiful beaches. On the second day, Viraj and his brother went surfing, which took a lot of energy. Exhausted, they rested under a coconut tree. That was when Viraj noticed a wooden box lying nearby. It seemed to have been left behind by someone, and after waiting a long time without anyone coming to claim it, he decided to take it back to the hotel. Back at the hotel, Viraj, driven by curiosity, opened the wooden box. A strange odor wafted out, and inside the box was nothing but a small white cloth bundle. As soon as the smell hit, Viraj's younger brother felt a creeping sense of unease and strongly opposed opening the bundle any further. Curiosity can kill a cat, and Viraj was too eager to see what was inside. Ignoring his brother's warnings, he unwrapped the cloth, revealing a few banknotes, a ring, and a photograph. The photo was of a young woman, her face slightly round, her skin dark, yet her beauty was undeniable. She was exactly Viraj's type. The moment he saw the picture, he blurted out, "Beautiful." At this point, many people may have already guessed that the box was actually a dowry prepared for a ghost marriage. However, ghost marriages are not common among Indians, so Viraj had no idea that the wooden box he picked up was related to such a ritual. And the moment he carelessly uttered the word "beautiful," his life was forever changed. Viraj's younger brother, who is my Indian friend, had heard a saying back in his hometown. When someone encounters something unclean, they won't see or feel it directly at first. Instead, they will smell a scent resembling decay. The moment Viraj opened the box, that foul odor immediately reminded his brother of this rumor. That was why he tried so hard to stop Viraj from unwrapping the white cloth, but in the end, Viraj still opened it. The next day, Viraj returned to the coconut tree, hoping to find the box's owner, but no one came forward. So, he decided to keep both the box and the photograph, taking them with him once again. This time, he even placed the woman's photo inside his wallet, keeping it as something to show off to others later. Viraj's brother knew he couldn't convince him to return the items, so he stopped insisting. That afternoon passed without incident, but that night, things took a strange turn. That evening, Viraj and his friends partied hard, drinking until they were completely wasted. Feeling dizzy and wanting to sober up, Viraj decided to take a walk alone along the beach, letting the ocean breeze clear his mind. After walking for a while, he felt his head getting heavier, so he sat under a coconut tree to rest. He wasn't sure how long he had his eyes closed, but suddenly, he heard breathing right next to his ear. Viraj's eyes snapped open. There was no one in sight. Glancing behind him, he confirmed that no one was there. Assuming he had just imagined it, he checked his watch. It was already past 1 a.m. He shook off the eerie feeling and began walking back to his hotel to sleep. Viraj and his brother share the same room. When he returned to the room, his brother was already asleep, so he headed to the bathroom to take a hot shower. Midway through his shower, he felt as if someone was pulling his hair. He reached up to touch his head and was horrified. It felt as though someone else's fingers and nails were running through his hair, as if someone was touching his head. Panic surged through Viraj. Trying to remain calm, he glanced at the mirror beside him. There was no one there. If the breathing by the coconut tree had been a result of his drunken haze, then surely, now that he was sober, this distinct feeling of fingers and nails brushing against his scalp couldn't possibly be a mistake. Viraj quickly finished his shower, changed into his clothes, and crawled into bed, trying not to think too much about what had just happened. Shaken by the experience, he found it hard to fall asleep. After lying there for what felt like an eternity, he felt the urge to use the bathroom. But just as he tried to get up, he realized he couldn't move. His entire body was frozen in place. Even when he attempted to speak, his mouth opened, yet no sound came out. This time, Viraj was truly terrified. He turned his eyes toward his brother's bed, desperately wanting to call for help. But no matter how hard he tried, no words escaped his lips. Helpless, tears welled up in his eyes and began streaming down his face. After a while, Viraj caught a glimpse of someone approaching him, a long-haired woman dressed in a white long dress. There should have been only two people in this room, him and his brother. But now, a third person had appeared out of nowhere. The sheer terror of the moment left him breathless. Viraj didn't dare look directly at her. Instead, he squeezed his eyes shut and desperately recited the names of every Hindu deity he could remember, hoping for some kind of protection. Yet, his body remained completely paralyzed. He had no idea how much time had passed when he finally mustered the courage to open his eyes again. The woman was still there, standing right beside him, but this time he got a clear look at her face. She didn't resemble the horrifying ghosts from the movies. Instead, she looked exactly like the woman in the photograph Viraj had placed in his wallet earlier, identical in every detail. She was undeniably beautiful. Seeing such a beautiful woman, Viraj's lust completely overpowered his fear. His eyes were fixed on her, and any lingering terror from before had vanished. The woman took the initiative, and just like that, Viraj found himself in an intimate encounter with her. After the encounter, he jolted awake as if snapping out of a dream. He was still lying in bed, his limbs now regaining sensation. Glancing at his watch, he saw that it was just past 2 a.m. After everything he had just experienced, only about an hour had passed. It must have been a dream, he thought. But when he lifted the bedsheet, he discovered the undeniable evidence. He'd had a wet dream. After this incident, Viraj's younger brother noticed that his brother had been acting strangely ever since that trip. In just 3 short months, Viraj had lost nearly 20 kilograms. His face looked incredibly haggard. Yet whenever his brother pressed him for answers, he simply brushed it off, insisting that nothing was wrong. Even when urged to see a doctor, Viraj refused. With no way to help him, both his brother and their parents could do nothing but watch helplessly. 1 year later, on a certain night, Viraj attempted to end his life by swallowing a large number of sleeping pills. Fortunately, his family discovered it in time and rushed him to the hospital for a gastric lavage. When he regained consciousness, Viraj broke down in tears, sobbing that his wife had demanded he end his life to help take care of their child. His brother and parents were utterly confused. After all, Viraj wasn't even married, so how could he have a wife and child? He claimed someone was trying to harm him, but the person he described was nothing more than a figment of his imagination. At that moment, Viraj's younger brother recalled what had happened during their trip the previous year. He cautiously asked his brother whether this wife he spoke of was the same woman from the photograph. Viraj froze for a moment, his expression turning stiff. Then, after a long pause, he finally revealed to his family the chilling truth behind his torment. Ever since the day he opened that box, a woman had been appearing in his dreams from time to time, claiming to be his wife. Every time, they would become intimate, and when he woke up the next morning, his body felt completely drained, as if something had been taken from him. Worse still, he would always experience nocturnal emissions, something highly unusual for an adult man. Yet, despite knowing deep down that this so-called wife was not human, Viraj couldn't help but indulge in it. She was beautiful, exactly his type, and even though he understood she was a ghost, he found himself unable, or perhaps unwilling to resist. At that moment, his instincts as a man completely took over. This ordeal continued for several months. During this time, whenever Viraj interacted with other women or developed feelings for someone, he would experience intense sleep paralysis at night. His so-called wife would appear, warning him that if he pursued another woman, she would take his life. Terrified, Viraj dared not approach any woman, living cautiously under her invisible watch. He was too afraid to tell his family, fearing they might become involved. In secret, he sought help from temples, hoping for an exorcism, but most of the so-called priests turned out to be frauds. Worse still, every failed attempt only angered his wife, making her haunt him more aggressively at night. The relentless torment left him physically and mentally drained, his condition worsening day by day. Sensing something was terribly wrong with his body, Viraj decided to undergo a full medical examination. The results puzzled the doctors. He had no detectable illness, yet his body, despite being in his 20s, was as weak as that of a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. He knew something was seriously wrong, but felt utterly powerless. Viraj had long accepted that his life was slipping away, but he never expected the end to come so soon. Viraj's wife constantly lamented that they could only be together on certain days, when the yin energy was strong. She longed for Viraj to join her in the afterlife, so they could be together forever. At first, Viraj was still young and full of life, his will to survive strong. The ghost had no way to take him by force. However, things changed recently when she told him that she had given birth to their child. She claimed that raising the child alone was too difficult and begged Viraj to come down and help her. The revelation shattered him. He had never imagined that a ghost could conceive and give birth. The sheer horror of the idea overwhelmed him, breaking down the last of his mental defenses. In his dazed and weakened state, Viraj became completely entranced. Under her influence, he swallowed a lethal dose of sleeping pills, attempting to take his own life. After hearing about this horrifying event, Viraj's family was convinced that the changes he had undergone over the past year were surely linked to the ghostly woman. They sought out the most renowned exorcist in the area to help rid him of the spirit. After several exorcism rituals, Viraj finally appeared to return to normal. Apparently, the ghost had been subdued. The ordeal seemed to be over. But was it really so? Years later, as Viraj approached 40, he remained unmarried, yet continued to thrive in the insurance industry. Curiously, his focus had shifted to child insurance plans. Despite being single, he developed an uncanny understanding of what parents needed. Once a man who despised children, he transformed into someone who genuinely enjoyed their company, as if he were living a second life, one as a caring father. It was even said that Viraj would sometimes be found rocking children to sleep at night, even though no one else was around him. The following items, if you ever come across them, don't be tempted to pick them up. If you enjoy my channel, please help by hitting the subscribe button and turning on the notification bell so you won't miss my upcoming videos. Thank you for watching until the end, and I'll see you next time.